My name is Dan Trelka. I'm the Director of Safety Services for the City of Waterloo. I also fulfill the responsibilities of the Chief of Police. And I'm holding this press conference because more than anything, I simply wanted to reassure the community. Generally, when it comes to the violence that we're seeing in the city right now, generally, the police department knows who's involved. Proving it is another matter. And that's why we need citizens to come forward and be willing to provide us with information, be witnesses for us, but generally we know who's involved. And what we have going on right now is we have two separate factions. In most of the shootings we have, many of the acts of violence, two separate factions are engaging in retaliatory measures against each other for some sort of perceived transgression. We are actually down 4 officer positions since June of 2014. 3 of those positions are due to budget constraints and 1 is due to the ending of a grant. However, the majority of the City Council has approved hiring 2 officers back, but we won't have those officers on board. We won't be able to start hiring them until the new budget cycle, which starts July 1st. So we are going to get some much needed help in the community, because I explained to the council during the budget talks that occurred this year, I felt that the police department was hanging on just by their fingertips. And with a lot of assistance from the mayor and the majority of the city council, we were able to get budget funding for 2 additional positions. Also, the officers of this community work incredibly hard to protect and serve this community. As a matter of fact, many of them take it personal. And that's good and that's bad. It's good that we work extra hard to hold individuals accountable. What's bad is it leads to burnout. But since April 1st, we have been holding many individuals accountable for their violent acts. We've actually arrested 31 individuals, facing a total of 99 felony charges. Again, that's since April 1st. And it's individuals who are shooting at houses, who are violating other people's rights in a violent manner. And we have seized 11 firearms since April 1st. And they were firearms that were seized from individuals who should not have firearms. Either they're convicted felons, they're too young to carry a firearm, or they use that weapon, they use that firearm in the act of a crime. We have many more charges and arrests forthcoming. We have warrants out for several individuals that are directly or indirectly responsible for the violence in our community. And we have several cases pending where we fully expect state or federal charges to be levied against individuals. Today, the Racine Police Department, 2 officers from the Racine Police Department are going to give our council and some of my staff a presentation on a community-oriented policing program that they started about 25 years ago that has proved incredibly successful. We're also placing a new emphasis on officers getting out of their cars, engaging in the community, talking with community members, in our hope that we can have an influence on individuals so that they won't even engage in criminal behavior. In our more challenging areas in the city, one thing we've done in the immediacy is we're having a greater presence in our most challenging areas of the city, where we're experiencing the greatest amount and frequency of violent crime. Matter of fact, we have asked the Sheriff's Department and the State Patrol for an additional visible presence. There's a fine balance between viewed as a military force in a neighborhood and quelling the violent acts that are occurring. We're trying to maintain that balance. We don't want to be viewed as a military presence in our neighborhoods, but we're working hard to work with neighborhoods to make the neighborhoods safer. The mayor initiated contact with the Department of Justice to provide assistance for us. So he and I have been in contact with the Department of Justice and the Police Executive Research Forum, and they're actually sending a team to Waterloo to evaluate what is occurring in our community. And they're going to, we're going to give it a fresh set of eyes, come into the community and offer a fresh perspective and review some of our practices, as well as review what's going on in the city to try to come up with solutions to the challenges we're facing. I've been working in collaboration with the NAACP and Probation and Parole. Marvin Spencer has been a representative of both entities, and we're in the process of identifying several of our most at-risk youth in our community, so that we can somehow come up with intervention through the schools or through Department of Health and Services to provide intervention for the families or these individuals, so they don't fall into this cycle of violence and ultimately end up committing a criminal act or such a violent act that they end up in prison. Training, we're searching for and looking for relevant training to try to help us with some of these challenges we're facing. As a matter of fact, through our discussions with the Department of Justice and PERF, they identified training that they invited me to attend in Washington, D.C. next week that involves use of force and some of the issues that have arisen with use of force utilized by police officers in places such as Ferguson, Baltimore, Oklahoma, San Bernardino County, California, practices and policies that police executives can utilize so that we may not have some of the issues that has arisen in many of these other communities, because times are changing. And this training is, many police executives are going to come together from throughout the nation. There's even going to be police chiefs there from other countries. There are going to be professors in attendance, scholars in attendance, and it's going to be a brainstorming session that ultimately evolves into a training session. One group I want to recognize is this Facebook group, Taking Back Waterloo. But when I checked this morning, they were already up to about 7,000 members. This has been phenomenal. It gives me hope, it gives me encouragement. This group has grown so rapidly, and they're remaining positive. They're not, if negative comments are popping up on the site, they're eliminating them. They want to get involved in this community because Waterloo is a community that has so much to offer. And again, the reason for this press conference is to reassure the community. Good things are happening in Waterloo. We're holding the people accountable. Things are changing for the better, believe it or not. In the past 5 years, we still have a net gain in our crime rate. It's just that the past 12, 13 months have been a struggle, and we've lost some of that ground. But we're unwilling to give that ground up, and we're coming up with strategies. We're utilizing current strategies. We don't want to lose all the ground we have gained. So the Taking Back Waterloo Facebook group has just been absolutely phenomenal. And it's a grassroots effort that has grown into, like I said, practically 7,000 members last time I checked this morning. And I want to give them some credit. They need recognition because they are maintaining that positive tone. And we can't emphasize enough that witnesses need to come forward. If you see or hear, or even if you see suspicious activity in your neighborhood, give us a call. If you witness a violent act, we need you to step forward and provide us with information. A very good example, and we can't emphasize it enough, with the Marshawn Glover case. We know, we have a good idea who may be responsible, but we cannot prove it yet. And we know that people in our community have critical information about the shooting of this 4-year-old child, and they're not coming forward because they're fearful of being targeted by individuals that may be responsible, or they just don't want to cooperate with the police. But we need that information. We need people to come forward. Secondly, we get involved in the lives of children. I implore all of you, everybody who's listening, everybody in the audience, get involved in the lives of young children, get involved in the lives of children, especially at-risk children, because they are the ones who tend to fall into this cycle of violence, end up becoming homicide victims, or end up getting locked away in prison for a very, very long time. Now, I'll be available for questions, and I'll take questions from the media, I'll take questions from the public. Captain Malis is also around someplace. He's the captain of our investigative unit. He's willing to take some questions if anybody wants to get some sound bites from them. I think he's wearing a purple shirt and a tie. But if anybody has any questions, I'm more than willing to answer any right now.
What difference does 2 more officers make?
It makes an amazing difference. It makes an amazing difference because we, up until January of 2014, our strength was at 125 officers. In my opinion, that's an optimal level of officers for the city of Waterloo. It's not overbearing, but it's enough for us to do all we can to take care of the community. In addition, and now, even though we're 4 officers down because of the council's decision to cut 3 positions for the last budget cycle, but as I said, we're getting 2 of those back with the next budget cycle. But it gets compounded by officers who are injured, officers who get sick, the employees take vacation. It compounds some of the issues we have and some of the programs we try to run. VCAT is a great example. Our violent crime apprehension team used to be 6 officers. Because of the budget cuts, we had to cut that unit down to 5 officers. Even though that's only 1 officer in regard to that unit, that was a significant hit for them. We had to limit some of our investigative positions. We rotate patrol officers in and out of investigations so that they can gain critical experience and also provide some assistance to our investigative unit. We had to limit that. We used to have a swing shift or a split shift where some of the officers who were assigned to either midnights or second shift would actually come in and work at 7 p.m. and work for 8 hours to cover the split between the 2 shifts. That assisted us in handling calls that were coming in late, coming in at 10:30, 10:45. We had to cut that completely. So those are the types of impacts that the loss of these officers had. But we're grateful that the majority of the council, not all the council members, but a majority of the council saw fit to give us a budget where we could hire 2 officers back.
What sort of assurances can you give members of the community? You mentioned that there's people who probably know something, but they're not willing to come forward. I mean, I'm assuming there's a mindset that if they talk to police, there's this thought that maybe word will get out that they talk to police. What sort of assurances can you give those people that their identities would be protected, they'll be safe?
Well, and that's a great question, because in our criminal justice system, that defendant has a right to confront those who are witnesses against them. We just ask you to step up, assist this community, and ultimately, if need be, willing to testify at trial. If you're not willing to testify at trial, we will take your information regardless, even if you're unwilling to give us your name, because it's great. It's of great assistance to us, even if you remain confidential. Even if you wish to remain confidential, but we're simply asking people to come forward with that information and assist us, because, like I said, it's a tragedy in our community when a 4-year-old child is struck by a bullet, and we have difficulty making a case against who we feel is a likely suspect. Yes, sir.
And Chief, you mentioned this thing about not coming forward and people being reluctant to snitch. And I'm looking at this, I'm out near the neighborhood all the time, and I see people throughout the neighborhood, and they feel that that's the same mentality on police departments throughout this country, where police departments have this, this thin blue line that they're afraid to cross, and it makes this into a us versus them type of situation. Now, is there any way that this police department can set the example and say, if officers are doing wrong, we're going to bring that up to the front page and show our community that we're not going to tolerate misbehavior from our officers as well as our citizens, and so that everybody's treated safe.
And you bring up a good point, and that's both issues are a national dilemma, with people unwilling to come forward and bring information forward. As a matter of fact, the societal violence we're seeing in this country is a national societal issue. In the city of Milwaukee, I believe so far this year they've had 45 homicides. Year to date last year they only had about 15. And we're seeing this in cities across the country. When it comes to, and this is a police department that I am incredibly proud of. I'm not going to say I am a United States Marine, but I'm no longer on active duty. And I'm just as proud to be associated with the Waterloo Police Department as I was with the United States Marine Corps. And I have a track record since being here in the 5 years that, so we have a lot of great people working here. But when our officers make mistakes, they are held appropriately accountable. And another thing that the mayor did is a frequent and regular dialogue with the NAACP. We have monthly meetings with them, and these are issues that we address. Some of the discipline that I had to met out to officers has gone public, as Iowa law keeps it, it shields it for a long, long time, but it comes to a point where some of these issues can be made public. The media and the public can see that when officers needed to be held appropriately accountable, they have been.
Yeah, but Chief, it's my position, and what I see it is you're going to have bad apples in all groups, even within the police department. And it's not the people within the bad officers within the police department that really hurt this community. It's the good officers that don't step forward and speak up. Same way, saying what you're asking for this community, step forward and speak up. And we can set the example with our police department and our civil service.
Well, I can tell you from the internal investigations that I've overseen in this police department, our officers do a good job of stepping forward, and when they see another officer doing something wrong, typically that's how I find out about officers engaged in negative activity. Typically how I find out about it is from other officers. So, and I'm proud of this department. They do a good job under very difficult circumstances, especially on the national stage today. It's not easy to be a cop anymore, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're having problems in some areas of recruitment, because police departments across the country are taking a beating, and some people say, why? That's a difficult job. Why would anybody in their right mind undertake it? Cheryl, yes ma'am.
Yes, you reviewed a tape I gave to you recently. Hope that you saw that.
I did.
What is your thought about using citizens in an advisory committee along with the PD, internal affairs, or what have you, to bridge the gap between the community and the police department?
That has been something that has been talked about since I've been here. It may work if it's set up appropriately. I don't feel it's to a point yet where compromise has been reached. Yes, ma'am.
What preventive measures are you taking?
For the community, in regard to this violence?
Yes.
This afternoon, the Racine officers are going to come in and give the COP presentation. We're exploring community policing efforts that have worked in other communities like Racine. But most importantly, the Waterloo Police Department is holding individuals accountable that need to be held accountable. And one great example is this past weekend, we had a violent home burglary. The officers had the suspects in custody in less than 48 hours and have what I consider to be a fantastic case. There's much more work to be done on the case, but these are two individuals that need to be held accountable. They're being held accountable, and it's a case that the officers took very personal. Yes, Jeff?
You had mentioned intervention for at-risk youth. What's available now?
Well, there's a lot of services out there. I mean, the schools, I saw a school representative here. The school has much to offer to these at-risk youth. DHS does. But we're in the process right now of identifying several individuals that we think are at the greatest risk. And once we identify them, and as we move forward and we evolve, we'll establish further partnerships. And some of the partnerships we'll establish will be with the schools and with DHS and even with the family members of these at-risk juveniles, so that we can do more to provide intervention. Because there's plenty of programs out there, Jeff. But I think it's just it's a travesty if I'm going to have the names of 5 at-risk juveniles and we do nothing. So we got to do more. You know, and I'm not talking about being light on crime. I mean, we still need to hold people accountable. But you'll hear me say time again and time again, we need to hold people appropriately accountable. There's a median. There's a right way of doing it. Circumstances vary. But the intervention for these juveniles is very important, and we have to do more. Yes, sir.
Chief, in regards to the Taking Back Waterloo base group and the rally they held Saturday, what role could they play in working with the police department and the community to help reduce violence?
Well, they have been strong advocates of encouraging people to come forward with information. I've been going to the Facebook page and following some of the commentary, and they can keep doing that, keep encouraging citizens to do that. We need to change the culture. They're also, I like how they're coming up with ideas as to what could possibly be done, and other people are bouncing ideas off from each other, and maybe we'll come up with more specific programs or strides forward that we can make. Even though what we're experiencing in Waterloo is being experienced across the country, sometimes we have specific problems in Waterloo that need a specific solution. You know, the one thing I'm proud of in Waterloo is even though with all these challenges we've seen across the country, our community has remained relatively calm. There in West, I think it's in West Memphis, Arkansas, there's been calls from community leaders for citizens to arm themselves against the police. We haven't seen anything even come close to that rhetoric here in Waterloo. People are remaining civil, people are remaining solution-focused, and I mean, Waterloo's a good community, and we just need to keep moving forward. Yes, ma'am.
Has the police department considered proactively working with young youth and getting out in the communities and starting some sports programs so there can be a level of trust built up between the community and the police department?
Yes, we like to assist in that, and there's so many programs that are out there that young people aren't taking advantage of. The Sportsplex, or Leisure Services, I should say. Leisure Services is offering programs. We need people to get involved. The Boys and Girls Club. And again, this isn't solely a police problem. A lot of time, communities like to point the finger at the police and say, first of all, they accuse us of being the root cause of the problem, then they expect us to wholly fix the problem. That's not true, that's not reality. These are community issues, these are society issues, and everybody needs to be involved. Yes, ma'am.
The kids that are living in neighborhoods that cannot afford to go to, for instance, the Sportsplex and the Boys and Girls Club, we need to be reaching those kids. I mean, we need to be proactively working with kids that live in poverty.
We do, and there are opportunities available. We just need to explore them and discover them.
Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Why is there such a lag time when an incident happens where it's a violent act against another individual, and you know the case I'm talking about?
Yes.
It happened in September, but nothing was filed until December. So why is there such a lag time?
Well, first of all, we need to conduct a thorough and complete investigation. And sometimes, in many cases, we can have, if only two individuals were involved, sometimes it ends up being he said, he said, he said, she said. We have to sort through all that, try to discover the facts as they relay them to us. And if it is a situation like that, many times we send it over to the prosecuting attorney's office so that they can review it and see if it's a prosecutable case.
But he wasn't aware of it. When we met with Tom, he wasn't aware of it.
Well, we handle 222 calls a day. We generate a lot of reports. Sometimes it takes time to get those reports together and get them over there. I mean, this is a case we've talked about many times. You know, we do the best we can to put this information forth. Sometimes when we are unable to make a case where ultimately a county attorney, let's say a county attorney doesn't feel it's a prosecutable case, people like to blame the police. We've got a great clearance rate with our violent crimes in the city of Waterloo, but we don't have a 100% clearance rate.
What are we doing about people that are coming into our city that don't live here? I mean, there are people who come here from Chicago, Milwaukee, and all those places. I know in Dubuque and Iowa City, you know, they're doing a lot to stop that. But a lot of these kids that are coming into our city they're not even native to Waterloo. Mm-hmm. What are we doing about that? And I guess I also want to know, do we have a list of our neighborhood associates around? Because I would like to have that, because I think we need to start there. It used to be in my neighborhood, and I'm quite sure in a lot of the rest of them, that the police would come into those neighborhood associate meetings. But somehow or another they've dropped. I mean, if we're going to expect the community to do stuff, we got to start. Us as community, we need to start somewhere. And I guess the Facebook thing is good, and everybody's getting on there, and they're saying things, but all this talking, we gotta start doing something, because this is bad.
You're right. A lot of people do too much talking and there's no action. When it comes to the community meetings, to the best of our ability, we try to get officers to them, but because of cuts to our budget, we're unable to have officers attend absolutely every meeting. Some of our command staff members are trying to attend those that they can, but we've taken a significant hit on budgetary issues. People from and we do have an influence from certain individuals that come into our community from other cities. They're free to come and go. When it comes to the standards that the police department needs to adhere to, unless they commit a crime, there's not much we can do and that we can prove. Perry Goodman is here from the neighborhood. He has all the list of the neighborhood associations, and he can certainly get that to you, ma'am.
Okay.
Jim, yes, sir.
Years ago, I want to follow up on what the lady asked you. Years ago, when there was a series of violent acts that resulted in basically the torching of East 4th Street and lower end of East 4th Street, following that, subsequent to that, was the establishment of the police athletic club in the middle of that area. It was a cooperative between the police department and the community, and it did a job for a period of time, and then for whatever reason, grants failed or it just left. Is there any way of working with citizens groups, with neighborhood associations, with the other agencies, with the community at large, and officers who are willing, because not all are, as been said this morning, officers who are willing to invest time and energy in the youth of this community in that kind of activity? There were weights, there was boxing, there was games and athletic instruction. Those things could be brought back. We have officers who are very capable of doing it if they're willing to invest in the community also.
Yes, well, and that's something members of our community need to spearhead, and if they can, I mean, funding's always a big issue. If you come up with a program that you can fund and support, the police department and the fire departments will certainly throw their weight behind it to assist.
Would you help with writing those grants or finding those grants?
I get, sadly, with current events and issues I have to face, I'll do whatever I can to help, but my time.
Is the mayor still here?
Yeah.
But I'm willing to assist, helping with grants. In the past month, I've been having problems keeping up with my own duties, to be quite honest.
Well, I understand that, but there ought to be somebody in this building who can help locate or look at grants, isn't there?
Possibly review them. I said that needs to be a community effort. If you get buy-in from the council, I mean, it takes 4 council members to support an initiative before they hold the purse strings. Let's put it that way.
Right.
I think what I'm hearing this gentleman back here saying is we need to see police officers, uniformed officers, doing jobs other than policing, just being a part of the community. So when you walk down the street, you see an officer, it's not one of these duck and hide situations. It's just like a lamppost. They're a fixture. They're there, and so you don't have to go somewhere and locate an officer. They're all around you all the time. We want to see them doing something other than policing.
And I want to see community members get more involved in the lives of at-risk children. And I'm not seeing that. So, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, those of you who are here, I know you are, but we need more. We need more. Thank you.